here we are, 20 episodes of e-commerce growth show. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Alex, thanks a lot for joining us today.
No problem.
So let me give a small introduction to our audience about yourself. Alex is the co-founder at We Make Websites, the Shopify Plus agency for international brands, founded in 2009. We Make Websites is a digital commerce agency with offices in London and New York. Alex is an international speaker on e-commerce, brand, and business growth. Alex, again, thanks a lot for joining us today.
No problem. Looking forward to it.
So the topic for today is how to scale international by using Shopify Plus. But before going into that, let me ask you the question that I'm asking everyone which is joining us. So how you first got into the e-commerce space if you take the time machine back?
Yeah, okay. So, So I studied computer science, and when I graduated, this was before being in a tech startup was cool or even possible often. So I ended up working for a bank for a couple of years, which, I learned a lot about technology. I ended up living in Switzerland for a bit, in London and New York. So it was quite fun, but ultimately I wanted to do my own thing. So We Make Websites, the company name, comes from the fact that that's what we decided to do. Well, let's just make websites for people. And very quickly, we realized that e-commerce was the most interesting area. And this was back in, I think 2012, we went e-commerce only. 2010, we started the business. 2009, actually, we started the business. And we went e-commerce only 3 years in. And the same year, we were using all sorts of different platforms, including building our own and all sorts. And eventually, we decided, why don't we just use this thing called Shopify? It seems to be a great product. It does everything we need. It makes our life easier, makes the client's life easier. And that was a huge turning point for us because we were one of the first agencies just to do Shopify. The other thing was that our positioning then became very clear because we were a Shopify agency, which back then was quite rare, actually, in 2013. So we very quickly became one of the predominant ones in Europe. We expanded to New York about 2.5 years ago, a bit longer, actually. And that's the short version. And I think the thing that's interesting for us about e-commerce is it is an intersection of technology, design, and commerce or business. And it's this overlap between the three, which we have a very strong skill set in. And I think it's quite rare, actually, to find people that are in this field that can get all three. So that's what we pride ourselves on.
Excellent. So, Alex, regarding the current context of the e-commerce, how do you see companies migrating to Shopify, and how do you see them tackling with the current environment, however you call it, I don't know, demanding or challenging?
Yeah, I think the trend at the minute, or has been for a few years, is that the bigger merchants, and you can go as big as you want on Shopify, but for us, our core market is, I guess, what you might call mid-market, so 5 to 100 million turnover. Not that that's a limit of what you can do on Shopify, but that I think is the interesting part of the market for us, because for going back 7 years, Shopify was perceived as like a small business platform, and then they launched Plus in 2016, and we were one of the first inaugural partners on the Plus program. And Plus was really to cater to this type of merchant that needs a bit more from the e-commerce platform. And the trend that we've seen over 7 years now, or longer really, is the level at which Shopify can deliver is higher and higher and higher every year. And I don't mean revenue specifically, really. I mean functionality. So can you do sophisticated things in the checkout, or with headless, or with variants, or whatever it is, or multilingual, or multi-currency. And these are new features that get rolled out all the time. So for us, what we do is, even if you have the most perfect technology in the world, you still have a very human problem of how do we apply this in our business, and what processes do we use, and how do we build a site design-wise or user experience-wise that is enjoyable to use. And we do that for those merchants. So the bigger ones that are on Shopify, we help them figure out how to get the best out of the platform. But what we do quite a lot of if they're coming from a background that is not SaaS, which is quite common, so maybe they've been hosting a Magento platform, for example, it's a bit of a different world to use a off-the-shelf SaaS platform and customize that. And there's a ton of advantages, like you can handle 4,000 checkouts a minute, and you never have to worry about traffic, and it's continually upgraded, and it's PCI compliant, and it goes on and on and on. But it can be a bit of a head shift, especially for a bigger company, to figure out, well, hang on, so we can't actually change the code base sometimes. And the answer is no, but we can do other things. We can use apps, or we can. Shopify Plus has got a lot of customization features that we use. So the trend is slowly to move on to Shopify, I think, and that's been sped up with the Magento 2 kind of situation that I think it's quite expensive to do. And so I think a lot of merchants are thinking, well, okay, if we've got to spend 6 figures replatforming, then maybe we'll look at other options. And that's really been a bit of a boost for us in the Shopify space. The final thing there is Shopify, I think, experienced enormous growth in the US and North America, which you can worry less about international. I think in the last 3 years or so, they've really, really begun to focus on multi-currency, multilingual, and building that as a core part of the platform. And because we started off in Europe, we were already dealing with this problem from 10 years ago. Of how do you sell to different markets and so on. So very exciting for us because it makes our job easier to some extent in that the platform is more capable than it was.
Can you let us know about how you are seeing Shopify Plus at the moment? There were some voices that considered Shopify Plus a way lower alternative to Magento 2 or to Hybris, and for mid-size or enterprise companies, it wasn't an option. Why do you think this is actually an option, as you are working with a lot of brands?
I think it's fairly simple. I think if you are an agency that sells Magento, then you will say, oh, Magento is great, don't use anything else. Yeah. If you're a Demandware, Salesforce, it's the same thing. And I think Shopify does have a very entrepreneurial history of, okay, if you want to start a business on a weekend and start selling whatever, you can do it. And I think that positioning is why they created Plus, because that positioning is kind of harmful against this idea that, okay, if you're doing 120 million a year, then Shopify Plus handles that perfectly well. Even there's merchants doing $1 billion a year on Plus. So I think it's one of these myths that exists in a self-serving way for the competition. So for us, I think a large part is explaining, no, it can do this or it can do that, and waiting for the market to catch up. I think the other reason that the adoption in the mid-market is speeding up is if you go back 5 years or longer, if you were an e-commerce manager, your career, and you were 10 years into your career, I mean, Shopify didn't exist when you started. So you were using these other platforms. Whereas now it's a bit different, that most people, we see a lot of e-commerce managers and we see them move between roles and so on. And most people now, when they join a role, have already used Shopify at some point. So it's not this mysterious, scary thing. So yeah, I think that's all it is. And it's a shame. And we actually run discovery sessions for all new clients, and we will get into can what you need be done? Or you get into a level of sophistication that you should build something bespoke or use another platform. And we try to be agnostic on that, because we don't want to build something that's difficult to deliver, And 99% of the time, or 95% of the time, Shopify Plus will do the job, and you get all these advantages that you get from a hosted platform like Shopify. And those things might be like enabling Apple Pay without having to do anything, which you can do on Plus. So this whole world of advantages you get, it's just a bit of a different mode of thinking, which is I'm outsourcing, in effect, a large chunk of my technology to this company called Shopify, and I have to trust that what they do with their product roadmap is what I need. Generally, it is, but it's a bit of a different world to if you maintain and patch your own software.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell us the common challenges that you've encountered for companies willing to migrate to Shopify Plus so far?
Yeah. So you get the common migration problems which exist no matter what the technology. So you need to get this product catalog of 1,000 or 10,000 products into this, and that is always tricky.
Yeah.
You have the SEO element. So, okay, your URLs are probably going to change between the two sites. And maybe the domains too, if you have a different international architecture. So that's another thing, that making sure that when the site goes live, there's not a sudden shock that, you know, loads of pages are broken and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Then, okay.
Just a second here on the SEO part. Are you can you do on Shopify Plus multi domains for various countries, or they are forcing you to have a single domain and different folders within that domain?
Good question. So we do a lot of consulting on this question, and we can do both, but they are quite radically different in terms of the architecture of the site. So what we do most of the time is we have a multi-region architecture. So you might have a French store in euros, English store in euros, a Spanish store in euros, and you might have a US store in English and Australian dollars store in English. And you have a store, a Shopify Plus store per each, but you sync it somehow. So maybe your middleware is synchronizing content. Maybe we have like a replication of one store to the others. So you're not literally maintaining 12 sets of the same product. You know, it's just that you have these stores powering it. So for years, that was the only option. Then they launched multi-currency on Shopify payments and also the multilingual API. So actually, before I get onto that, so in the multi-store, they each need to sit on a different domain. So you might have brandname.com is your US English, uk.brandname.com is English GBP, sorry. fr.brandname.com is French Euro, and you map it that way, and then we build all the redirections and the pop-ups to say, hey, it looks like you're in France, click here, and you go to the French store. So that's option one. In option two, if you use their multilingual API, you can use folders, which some clients prefer. And I think the debate, certainly, as far as I understand it, is still open on which international SEO architecture is correct or best. And I think it's not clear. But if you really want subfolders, you can do that now with their multilingual API. The other thing that's interesting is Shopify Payments allows multi-currency, which could mean you only need one store. You might have one store powering, 20, 30, 40, 50 different currencies. If you do that, you have to use Shopify's multi-currency feature, which is works a very specific way. So I think it's a very good example of, if you can get the power of it, then it is amazing. It does some price rounding, which for some brands, they might not want to do it or whatever. Now, I would argue that it's getting to a point where the advantages of their approach is actually more than doing it yourself. But with that said, it's still a split between which route we end up going down. And the final thing we should mention is headless. So we're working on a headless site at the minute that is going to have, I think, 20 different languages and maybe, I think, 7 or so currencies. And they can very, very easily add other currencies. And that's a combination of Shopify, Contentful, Reach, Algolia, and a few other options.
Excellent. So, are there any other challenges than these ones related to the SEO and all the mess regarding the fact that you are not sure that you can keep your traffic?
Yeah. So I think that one of the big things that we have to navigate a lot is, okay, you are moving from this website to a new website. It is not a given that everything on this website will be on this website. We're starting from scratch. We're building a new house, and we're doing it from scratch. And quite often, once the project gets going, a client says, oh yeah, I forgot that there's this one thing on the old site that we need. And that's fine. And we build that in, whatever. But I think if anyone's about to go through this process, I think the key thing is during the discovery phase or the sales phase, or as early as possible, that as many people are included as possible on the client side. So you go and find the man or woman in accounts. You go and find the person that does the merchandising. You go and find the person that does the SEO and the person that does the photography. And, you get them together and say, just so we're clear, this is how it's going to work in the new site. Is that okay? So that's quite a big one, and we have a lot of experience doing that. So we usually get most requirements at the start. And then the other thing related to that is integrations, right? So you are ripping off the top of the site and putting on a new site. So when you're integrating backwards into NetSuite or SAP or whatever, well, there's many options there again on how we do it. So I think planning, if I could summarize the whole thing, planning is the big thing. That just knowing this is what we're trying to get to, and we can then draw the steps on how to get there. Yeah.
What's the average migration time from the moment when the customer said, yes, let's do this, and they've signed the contract, and the moment where it's live? Are you measuring all this? I don't know. Do you have an average time to deploy? Or
we say 4 to 6 months normally, which is pretty fast in the scheme of things. And the normal, I mean, it can be done faster for sure, especially if there's no integrations or if it's only one language and one currency. The sticking point normally is integrations, because it requires all these different parties to be discussing, hey, this product field here is going to be this field here, and we didn't realize that that's going to be in this format and all this stuff. And you tend to get to that towards the end, and then everybody's going, oh my God. The other problem is often the team running the e-commerce project is the e-commerce team, as in they are also running the business. So let's say you get to Black Friday or whatever, then they're suddenly totally busy doing their day job. So planning around that. What some brands do is they bring in a project manager on their side, which can be really helpful actually. Or they just have to accept, right, okay, we have 4 months now to get this done, and we will dedicate a person to being available at all times. But yeah, resourcing it on the client side, I think, is also not easy. Most e-commerce businesses don't have a spare person, lying around to put on this stuff.
Yeah. So that means usually they need to run the business as it is and reach their KPIs, and on the sidetrack to handle this migration, which is tedious and usually is not working. I used to be to run an e-commerce, and we've migrated multiple times in my activity of 7 years. We've replatformed 2 times, and it was a complete mess. So
you know it well. Yeah, it's not easy at all. These are big, complicated projects, and I think having someone involved, an agency that does it every day, is helpful, because they will say, hey, you guys just need to remember this thing for 3 months' time, or to take into account this situation. But yeah, like you say, it is a very complicated thing. You're trying to rebuild the house somewhere else and then suddenly switch over, and it's not easy.
With zero downtime.
Yeah, zero downtime.
Yeah. So Alex, regarding the let's say the patterns that you've seen in the mentalities of companies, have you seen some attitudes that you think are the best towards growing an e-commerce internationally? Or tell us about your best experience so far, the best e-commerce leaders that you've encountered. Tell us some stories regarding the right set of attitudes and principles that are guaranteeing or are improving the chances for a success for migration.
Yeah, well, I think with going international, so if you're not already international as a business, I think it's always best to be pulled, so you're not just saying, okay, suddenly I'm in the US, suddenly I'm in Japan, or suddenly whatever, that you have seen in your Google Analytics, okay, there's people that will buy this product even though it's not in their currency or even their language. And then that if you can optimize, then that's amazing, and you could sell a lot more. So normally the first step is, where do we actually have demand? And you could create that, you could use Facebook or Google advertising or whatever to create the demand. But I think it's nice if you are getting pulled, and not necessarily just paid as well. It could be influencer marketing or whatever you're doing for marketing if you're doing it internationally. So hopefully you're getting pulled there. Then the first step then is localizing or optimizing locally somehow. So is it that you translate the site, or is it that you sell in the local currency? And with currency, there's several ways of doing it. So you can show an indication of the price. So it just says, okay, this is €10, and if I change it to pounds, it says, oh, it's roughly £9.50 or something, but I still get charged in euros. That's the most basic method. Or you might provide actual multi-currency where the customer is getting billed in the actual currency, and that's ideally what you want because they don't get charged and all this. So you start to optimize locally. The next problem you'll have, or opportunity, I suppose, is how do you distribute? So especially if it's across continents. So if you're European and you're selling into the US, then you might want to look at local fulfillment centers here and moving stock and all this sort of thing, so that you don't have these enormous shipping times, which is again a form of optimization. So as you get further down the track, you get more and more localized, and there's more and more effort and cost and sophistication at each point. So what I would do is always just be watching my numbers and trying to look at, okay, I think there's an opportunity here. If we can get a US presence and a US market share, then we can begin to build out a US fulfillment and go from there.
Yeah. Alex, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, TJ Gamble from Jameson said that Shopify posted on their website the fact that they've actually had a blurb saying that you can get rid of the, let's say, fees or something like among this line for the developers to implement Shopify Plus. Do you think that was a bad move, or it was just a hiccup that they've got in? Do you think they will attack their partners and they will end up making Shopify Plus migration and everything with their people, or they will continue to sustain the partners that made actually Shopify happen eventually?
I saw the thread, and I saw that also Martin, that heads the partner program, had responded and said, oh, this was a mistake or oversight, a copywriter that was overzealous. And I think, like I said before, even if you have the perfect technology, you always need people that understand technology and business to put it together. Shopify has always had this moat of partners. That is their competitive advantage. So they don't build everything because they have this core platform that's very strong. And when they have these excellent app partners that build on there, and the agencies are the same, that they just won't ever get into, this game, I don't think, because it's not a very easy game to get to succeed at. It's very difficult to run a profitable agency, and I don't know why they would ever want to get into that when there's jokers like us that would do it for them. So I just don't think it would be in their strategy to do that. Ultimately, they're a product company, and they don't want to service, a million different businesses in terms of their requirements. And certainly at the scale of Plus, where it's, mid-market, they need an SI, to use the more common phrase from the, Magento Demandware world is the SI, right? Systems integrator. So what we do is take a pool of products and get them to get the best out of them. And that includes the apps on Shopify as well. So I think it's always going to be needed. But yeah, anything that they can do to support partners more is certainly appreciated.
Yeah, Alex, when you migrate, you still need a reliable partner to help you maintain and actually find the right extensions so that you can continue to thrive on the e-commerce game. How do you tackle this? How long are you with the customers? Is this a one-time project, or is this something?
Yeah, that's a good question. In fact, that's similar to the previous thing. So I think that the copy they had was something about retainers, right? I think what they were getting at is these Magento agencies that charge a lot for hosting and maintenance, which you don't need on Shopify. But certainly if you're a growing business, you would expect to spend money on an agency to do the continual growth of the website in line with the business. So that might be conversion optimization, it might be fulfillment and optimizing supply chain operations. It might be building out new features on the website and adopting to the changing needs of the business. So the only reason a brand wouldn't want to carry on spending with their agencies if they're not planning to grow, I guess, which does happen. Some brands are fairly happy, but certainly most of the ones that we work with, if not all of them, are looking for some sort of growth in their e-commerce operations. And that might be a large public company that's doing D2C, or it might be a digital first, newer company that's doing e-commerce. In both cases, they're going to be paying for us to apply our expertise for them to grow the business. And I don't think that would stop even if the technology was perfect.
Yeah. Do you think the platform is crucial? You've touched the conversion rate optimization topic. Do you think the conversion rate optimization is affected by the platform, or is not? The platform is not that crucial, and it's all about the layout and the copywriting itself.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the platform doesn't matter too much. Most of these solutions need you to add some, one line of JavaScript, so-called, and then you can manipulate the page. And I think with conversion optimization, it's normally the tweaks and the bits and pieces that are going to just boost slowly over time, the minor, increments that get a big result over time. I guess the good thing about Shopify is it is very quick to apply the lesson. So, once you prove, okay, this color is better than this, or this copy is better than this, you can apply that to your code base and then go and iterate from there. But I don't know. What do you think? Because I know that you have expertise in that area.
Yeah, my opinion is that many companies many e-commerce companies, I think below mid-size and even at larger online retailers, they put too much weight on the platform, and they think that after migrating, suddenly their sales will go up because the conversion rate will be suddenly better. And I think that's a toxic assumption, because when you are migrating, you've seen the classic example with Marks and Spencer, when they've changed the website, they've invested like £5 million pounds into it, and then their sales got down, and they need to go back to the previous website, and it was a complete mess.
I agree. Yeah. So I think we have a number somewhere that we do expect a conversion boost of some sort, hopefully, if we did a better design. But I agree that shouldn't be the end point. That's just okay because you have a more modern site. Because if you keep in mind that most brands would rebuild their website maybe every 3 years or something, so you would expect that a new build should, if it's done well, unlike the Marks and Spencer's case, should get some improvement because the UX is better or the branding is better or whatever. So you hope there is some boost, and normally I think on average we see like 20% or something. But then after that, that's the start then. And one of our business values actually is never stop improving, which I think is something that any growing business would want to apply, which is we don't stop even when we think we're doing well or okay. And I think anyone in e-commerce right now must feel like that, because clearly the market is being adopted. The transition is happening faster in 2020 than it would have done otherwise. So I think they should always be growing. And then what happens, as you probably know, is you get to a point where you've maxed out the site as much as possible, and you realize, okay, we're at the local maxima here. This conversion rate won't go any higher. It's time to rebuild, because then we know we can get these structural architectural shifts that we need in order to get to the next level. And normally, that's every 3 years, I would say that happens.
Yeah, I think the nuance here is that many e-commerce leaders fall in the trap of replatforming when there is no use to replatform, or is not the case to replatform, because they have other issues. Let's say they are not listening to the customer voice. They don't know what kind of problems they have on the supply chain or on the fulfillment, but they have this agenda to replatform, and they've changed they changed the website, but they don't change the services. Like they have poor return policies, they have poor customer service, but they give a new face to the website interface. And then they struggle with the fact that they've touched a ceiling in terms of the conversion rate or in terms of the customer retention, and they don't have other markets to attack, because if you provide if you have shitty services, you're not going to transform the customer lifetime value by changing the website and improving the design.
Yep. Yeah, I would say most of the replatforms that we do are triggered either by a hard deadline, like they want to get off Magento and they don't want to pay the license next time, so they move on to that. Yeah. Or it might be strategic, but they need to also, they shouldn't be doing it as a measure just to boost conversion rates when there's foundational issues. But what we find is that most clients have got it the other way around, that all that stuff is good, but they've been held back because they can't update the platform quickly, or it doesn't handle the volume they have, or there's some other technical reason, or if you see what I mean, rather than a marketing positioning reason. But they certainly need to have that stuff in place for sure.
Yeah, I call this this approach being like a disease, like featureitis, right? You have more features, and then you'll change the approach. As time goes by, I come to the realization that the basics are way more important than you think. So having happy customers that refer your business, it's always, I don't know, the commerce itself, right? It's
something that I used to. So I used to teach e-commerce at General Assembly, and that was generally at startup businesses that were just beginning. And what I used to say is, let's say you have £2,000 to spend, or even more. Don't spend it on the website, right? Spend it on the photography and the copy and the product, and getting the product right, and not getting a bespoke website, because that should come last. I know it's a strange thing to say as a web design agency, but you need to get the foundations in place, like you say. And also nowadays, if you get a decent theme off the shelf and you have good photography, it will look pretty good. It will look good enough to buy. People are not going to buy because it looks crap. They're going to not buy because they don't like the product or the price or the returns policy or a business model problem, rather than it doesn't look quite right. So what I always used to say is, get an off-the-shelf site, spend the money on content basically, and getting the merchandising of the site right. Then once you prove that you have a viable business, then you can begin the optimizations and building a bespoke site, because you might have this very specific way that you handle, colors or customizations or whatever. And then you pay a professional to optimize from a solid base, which I guess is what you're getting at, rather than, if we just change the colors, we might trick some customers into buying a crap product, Whereas what we're saying is all that other stuff should be healthy. The policies and the products and everything else should be in a good position. And then we're saying, okay, we think we can pull a few levers here and get another 5% or 10% or whatever.
Yeah, got it. Alex, can you, I don't know, you have a large experience with various e-commerce leaders. I think you could, let's say, emphasize the top three let's say flows or mentality flows that you've encountered with. I mean, which are the top three mistakes that e-commerce leaders are repeatedly doing from your perspective?
Top three mistakes. So that's a good question. So, I mean, I will necessarily focus more on the technology, because that's what I know of the design. So I'm not saying it necessarily strategically. But I think, so the first thing to remember in e-commerce is that the secret is that the lifetime value of a customer should be more than the first purchase. So you spend all this money to acquire the customer through whatever channels, whether that's influencers or ads or out of home or whatever. So you get them on the site and they buy something, hopefully. Then that is where the journey begins. Well, that's where the journey is partway through. And we don't stop there. We look for retention. So they come back and they buy more of the same thing, which is obviously easier for some things than others. If you sell coffee, it's a lot easier to have retention than if you sell mattresses. But there's still things we can do to keep people coming back and buying more from the brand if they had a good experience. Then
you can send pillows or other things.
Yeah, exactly. Supplementary goods, exactly. And then ideally most people become advocates, where they're saying, hey, I bought these really great shorts or this really great mattress or this really great coffee or whatever to their friends, and you have this then engine of growth because people are saying, wow, this thing's great, you need to get it. And I think e-commerce leaders shouldn't forget that is the essence of what they're trying to do. So the journey doesn't end when their customer buys something. That is that you now have a good customer and you can reward loyal customers. You can go and try and target customers that haven't been on the site for 6 months, or there's all sorts you can do to keep people coming back. And for the advocacy side, providing an excellent experience is the essence. That if you can sell something that people love and give them a good experience, then they're going to go and recommend. So not forgetting that would be point one.
Yeah.
I also think that
I'm totally with you. I think this is the number one problem that they have, even though I'm biased because we are handling the customer lifetime value optimization with our products. I totally agree with you on this.
Good.
To my ears. Number two.
So number two is there's this old, like very cheesy saying. I don't even want to say it, but it's retail is detail. So retail is detail, and I've seen on TV before these like retail bosses going into a store and like looking at like does not look right. This shelf does not. This is a CEO of a multi-million-pound chain of stores, and I said this thing on the aisle is wrong. I think it's the same with websites. That if I go on a website. And I know good founders that are like this, and they'll say that the way this copy looks on this is wrong, even though it's the most minor, silly thing. This is what happens when you go on an e-commerce site. And I always find it interesting if my girlfriend, she doesn't work in technology, and I'll sometimes show her the sites we built, and she'll say, "Oh, it makes no sense that I have to click twice to get on this thing." And I think, right, this is it. If you can get this stuff somehow. Whether that's surveys or other conversion and user research, then that is how you continually build. Because the annoying thing about a website is you just can't see people use it. It's like this thing that there could be 1 million people going to this website a month, and you can't see that. Oh my God, 10% of them keep getting to this page that makes no sense. It's so infuriating. So paying attention to the details is something that no business leader, I think, should forget. But certainly in e-commerce, you've got to get all those touch points right.
Right.
So that's point two. So for point three, I'm trying to think what I should choose. So I suppose actually something I've been thinking about a lot is people, right? That if this is for the leaders of these companies, that ultimately you can't make all the decisions and you can't control everything. And eventually you need a team you can rely on, and that might be your first 3 employees, or it might be 30 or 300. And the reason that business leaders talk about people so much, and it starts to sound cheesy, it starts to sound like something that you get in like some corporate like world, but people have to do the work and make the decisions all the time, and not you. So you therefore have to find the right people and give them guidance in the shape of values or goals or principles or just that general advice. And I always say, I didn't make this up, I don't know where I read it, but leadership is a series of one-to-ones with people that trying to figure out, okay, what you're working on and how do we guide you to this thing. It's not standing in front of the whole company saying, oh, great news, look at this slideshow. It's talking to people one-on-one. And I think people, it's just over the years, whenever I found myself struggling with our with growth, because we grew a lot as well, like a lot of e-commerce companies, and as a technical founder, I was going through the motions of how do you build a successful business, and I'm trying to like dive in and fix this thing, and eventually I realized, no, I need a good person that will do that, and then that person needs good people that will do that, and just don't forget that, because I think that is the essence of a business, people.
Yeah, I love that. So Alex, I'm totally in line with you. I've realized this on my own skin as an entrepreneur. I've built four companies so far, and here at AmiConvert, I realized multiple times that if I'm doing this, who's going to be the CEO? If I'm doing this minor thing, if I'm the go-to person every time some fire goes up, who's going to replace me in my position as the CEO? Who's going to craft the system? Who's going to do the architecture? Who's going to do the fundraising or whatever, the strategical approach? And I think that's one of my insights that I'm keeping together with me. Always I have to fire myself. So if I can fire myself from the position of being I don't know, the HR manager or whatever, I think I've made a great job, and I'm totally in line with you. And yes, Juliana.
Yeah, she says, good job that you have me, Valentin.
Yes, that's right. You're great, Juliana. So that's why I keep enjoying doing this. However, but you'll be a great host on this show. So you're up next after the autonomous. Yeah. Great. So moving forward, Alex, as the essence of our show is growth for e-commerce as a business, but also for e-commerce people as individuals. Tell us what decisions, what were the greatest decisions that you made that allowed you to grow as an individual and also as a leader within the e-commerce industry.
Okay, so one of the things that made a big difference to us is having a very strong niche position in the market. So back when people didn't think of Shopify as a big platform, and there wasn't really a Shopify partner program, or it certainly wasn't big. We were a Shopify agency, and other agencies were saying to us, why would you do that? Because you're turning away work that could be good. And it really works. That if you have a niche position, when people land on our site, they see, oh, Shopify Plus agency. If they need Shopify Plus, they will talk to us. If they don't, they won't. And that's fine. Yeah. But we have a higher conversion of people that do. And then operationally also gets easier because, I mean, we were building on every e-commerce platform and all this, and you never can contain the knowledge. Whereas with Shopify, we just do it every day. We've literally done it 500 times. So we know the platform inside out, and not just me, like the whole company. And it's very hard to do that if you have a more general positioning. So I think occupying a niche is key, is a big thing. What else has worked well for us? I mean, we're not funded, so I think we have to be quite careful with cash, and that's always been slightly painful because you're always trying to meet this demand that you might have sold, but you can't deliver on yet. And I think we're finally out of that after a long time. But trying to find what am I trying to say? To your point that you just made, actually, about working on the business and not in the business. Somehow we have to make space for us to do the building of the business and deliver on stuff whilst we find the people, which it's different. If you go and raise a lot of money, it's different, right? Because you can go and find the perfect person to run this new team, and you don't need to do anything. Well, you have to direct them, and that's it.
That's an illusion. I've been there.
Yeah, it's hard. The other thing I would say is about two more things, actually. So measuring. So we are quite good at that. So we have a very clear view of billable time, quality, revenue, team happiness, client happiness. And sometimes as a technical founder, especially, it can feel very strange to not be doing as much. Well, it's all meetings, right? So you get to the end of the day and you think, I was just on Zoom all day. Okay, but it's a very odd feeling. And then I realized, and this is why it connects with people, oh, but actually the numbers are going up. So something is working, and it stops my, anxiety, I suppose. Oh my God, did I do enough work? I can see that, okay, we're actually making some good decisions. And I'm still getting used to sometimes having to wait 6 months to see that. Like, okay, we make this change to the framework system or to the way that we structure our deals or something. And then in 6 months, I see, oh, wow, that worked. We got more profit margin, or we did a better quality product or whatever. So measuring and making that a core DNA of companies, I think is a really big thing. And then one more thing that I think has been very helpful for both Piers and I, so Piers and my co-founder, is that we're generalists. So I don't need to know that much about contract law. I don't need to know that much about HR. I don't need to know that much, even now, about the technology, which is funny because I'm a developer, actually. I just need to know enough that I can dive into that thing. And then the next call might be about something completely different. It could be going from strategy for what we're going to do next year into a call about field mapping types in an ERP integration. And I think a good founder is able to do that. Now, I don't think every founder is like that. And I think some of them are more in this like MBA vein, where it's like you understand, a balance sheet and strategy from the McKinsey type of thinking. And I'm just not like that. I'm just someone that needs to go in and know enough about the situation and say, well, why do we do it that way? Let's do something different. And I think that's been really helpful for us, remaining generalists the whole time.
Yeah. Alex, tell us about this transitioning to work from home. So I don't know how many people you had in your company, and how you've tackled this. Were you working remote beforehand? And tell us about your experience.
Yeah, so we had a handful in New York, a handful in Toronto, a handful in Vancouver. Toronto and Vancouver were all remote, so there was no office. And we also, in London, I think we had 50 at the start of COVID. And I think we're very fortunate in that we already allowed work from home quite a lot. And obviously we all work on laptops and on Zoom. So it's not like a crazy shift. It's not like we have to learn how to use Zoom, which I know some businesses did. So that's all fine. We're still, the economy and all this stuff is still a bit scary for every business. But I think, we've been generally very lucky, and e-commerce has been adopted more. I think the problem that's left for us is, okay, we had a very high employee NPS and a very high social fabric in the company because you were all together all the time. So you always could go and get lunch or go and get a beer on a Friday, and there was a camaraderie. So how do you do that now? And I don't think we have worked out the answer. And you can try, Zoom yoga and quizzes and bingo and all this, and I think it helps a bit. But ultimately, you want to get people together. And I know the travel restrictions there and everything make this difficult, but I imagine what we'll end up doing is having a digital first policy, but we also get everybody together once or twice or 3 times a year, just so you can build those relationships, because that's the other thing about people, right? It's not just that person in isolation, it's who they work with. And if you have never met that person, that just seems like odd to me. And I know maybe that's old school now, but it is building that relationship with a person, even if you don't see them for another 6 months, I think it's really key. And we're still figuring that out. And obviously, like everybody, we don't know what's going to happen next year, but I'm hoping that it's going to be a lot more possible for us to do that.
Yeah. So if you are looking back at this moment, you feel and you think that you've made a good job and the team spirit is there, even though you've turned into a full remote environment?
Yeah, I don't think it's bad. I just don't think it's as easy as it was. We used to do a lot of fun things, basically. And we also used to sit together. So, you lean over and say, hey, what do you think about this? And all that. Oh, the other thing is you walk past people in the corridor and, there's this story, I don't know how true it is, but apparently when Steve Jobs was signing off the design for the Pixar studios, he had the toilets, the bathroom at one end of the building and one corridor. So everybody had to walk down this corridor. And I don't know if this is true or whatever, but I think there is something to the fact that we had a similar thing in our London office, right? There was a corridor to the bathroom at the end. And you just walk into people, oh, hey, you know, I haven't talked to this designer in a few weeks, or I haven't seen this person from the project management team in ages. And we just have a chat and say, oh, you know, you need to make sure you speak to so-and-so about this thing. All that is gone, as far as I can tell. And it's not the end of the world, because, you know, we just have to structure things better and communicate better. But I want to bring a bit of that magic back, and I don't think we've worked out how exactly yet. Yeah.
That's keeping my mind occupied as well, Alex. We're on the same boat. So if you
one thing that we've done is, I realize there's people that I had never spoken to in my own company, which is strange. And one thing there's some people I speak to every day and whatever. So we do one thing called a founder wind down. So we do wind downs every Friday with the individual teams. They're on different time zones, so 5 o'clock is obviously different. So they all get together on a Zoom and, you know, have a chat and what you're doing on the weekend and have a beer and all this. So anyway, we do a founder wind down on a Thursday every 2 weeks, and it's a randomly selected set of 5 team members. So we join them, and people on those founder wind down sometimes I never met. Crazy. And I want to know like, what, you know, tell me about what it's like in this company and what we should do differently, and also have some fun, you know, because we can't forget that either. So that's one thing. But yeah, we're still navigating it, you know, and yeah, well, so Juliana said, tell us when you find out. Yeah, that's exactly how I feel.
Yeah, great. So Alex, the last question is how you are growing as an individual, despite the professional activities. How you let's say behave in relation to yourself, and how you're measuring your inner progress, right?
Wow, big question to finish on. So
it's eCommerce Growth Show, told you, right?
Yeah, so I think the thing, how deep do I go on this?
So we've got some deep philosophical questions here, and so we've got.
One of the things I've been surprised at in lockdown, and I have to caveat, you know, my privilege, and, you know, I've been very lucky that we've been at home. I can work from home, and, you know, it's relatively easy compared to a lot of people. But one of the things I noticed is we are less stimulated. Well, we don't go into the I used to go into Manhattan. I'm in New York, so I used to get the subway every day, and there's all this chaos going on and this intensity and busyness that is occupying your mind all the time.
Yeah.
And right now, a lot of this excitement has gone away. And so we're all at home and stuck on the computer, basically. And as we've slowly, because New York is opening up, you know, and it's got a very low rate, thankfully. So you can go to a restaurant and eat out, and you can go away. And so you go for a walk, and then you see, you know, a bird or a tree. Oh my God, I never noticed how beautiful the tree was before. And we're having that feeling a lot. Like, you know, you go and you talk to some people in a restaurant across the table 6 feet, and then you're having a really good conversation because everybody's been inside, and we're becoming maybe more mindful, I hope, anyway. That the pace has slowed down, and I think a lot of people will think, hang on, what do I want? What do I value? What do I actually want? And I think I'm going through that too. Right now, we're very busy because of a number of things, but in general, I do try and not work late and try and make space, because that's the other problem being at home, right? That you always connected.
Take work with you.
Take work with you, yeah. And I'm very conscious of that for our team, that I don't want them to feel like, oh, I have to always, you know, be responding and all this. So I haven't mastered it myself, but I don't really ever check emails on an evening. And once I turn off, and I don't go back on. And even if it is a selfish, productive thing, it's my battery's getting renewed. I still think it's important. And I haven't mastered it either, but, you know, I started learning the piano in lockdown, and there's a few other bits I've been trying to do, but I just think trying to be more grateful is what I'm trying to say. By the way, I have not mastered this, so I'm not saying I've got it all, but I just think just making more space for that, because for the first time in my life during lockdown, I went into the garden at the back and I would sit and just look at the tree. I couldn't believe it. I had never been that person. I'm always just the next thing, always looking at the phone and all this. And I'm very grateful for that, actually. So I hope it continues, or if I'll just be a stressed mess again soon.
Yeah, great. So Alex, I'm totally with you. I think this is the silver lining of this pandemic. Let's say maybe we as a species will learn more about the present moment and how to be grateful about what we already have and we are. Instead of running in the future towards the next shiny thing, and I think that trap has swallowed us all, and maybe this is a great opportunity for us to cherish the present moment. And thanks for mentioning this, Alex, and thanks for being part of this episode of eCommerce Growth Show. Where can people reach out to find you?
Yeah, so wemakewebsites.com is the website. We're on Twitter, wemakewebsites_. And on Instagram, wemakewebsites_. We couldn't get wemakewebsites. So have a look there. Sometimes we post advice on there, so it's a good place to go. I don't have like a work thing that I really promote from, so that's the best place. And we write quite a lot of articles certainly on the technology side of e-commerce. So have a look.
Perfect. So thanks a lot, Alex. Thanks everyone for watching. Next Thursday at 3 p.m. UK time, we'll have the next episode together with Ben Libe from Conversion Excel Institute. So thanks for watching, and thanks, Alex, for being with us today.
Thank you.
Best in Bucharest.
I enjoyed it. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.